The spaceport was alive with lights, banners, and voices from across the galaxy. Ships of every color and design hovered above the massive landing rings. Aliens of different shapes filled the viewing decks, their eyes all fixed on one small corner. That corner belonged to humanity. For the first time in history, humans had built a starship and brought it to the great gathering of species. At first, silence spread across the crowd. They saw the ship and then the laughter began. It was not the proud laughter of joy, but the cruel laughter of mockery. The ship looked nothing like the shining cruisers of the Kethar, or the crystal blades of the Valar, or the living ships of the Marakai. Humanity's vessel was dull gray, shaped like a long cylinder with wings that looked half-broken. Its metal plates were not polished, but scratched. There was no glow of elegance, no sign of alien technology. It looked old, small, and weak. Is this a joke? One alien shouted, and others laughed harder. Did the humans bring a cargo tube instead of a warship? Crowds of alien nobles raised glasses pointing at the little ship. Children of alien races tugged at their parents, asking why the humans had built such an ugly machine. The answer was always the same. Humans were foolish, weak, and too young for the stars. The announcers on the broadcast channels joined in the mockery. They compared the human ship to rusted scrap, to a coffin floating in space. Some said it would not even survive its first launch. Others joked it might break apart before leaving orbit. But inside the ship, no one was laughing. The crew sat in silence, strapped into their chairs. Their uniforms were simple, their faces calm. They heard the laughter echoing even through the comm channels, but they did not answer. The captain stood at the front, his hands behind his back, his eyes fixed on the great star beyond the port windows. He was an older man, hair silver, skin lined from years of work, but his voice was strong. "Do not look at them," he told his crew. "Let them laugh. Let them think this ship is weak. Their laughter is our shield." One young officer shifted uncomfortably. "But Captain, what if they are right? What if the ship cannot endure the storm?" The captain's eyes narrowed. For a long moment he did not speak. Then he leaned closer and whispered, "This ship was born in storms. It is not built to look beautiful. It is built to survive, and today the galaxy will learn what survival means." The human ship's engines began to hum. At first it was a quiet sound, almost fragile, like the beating of a bird's wings. Alien ships laughed again, their engines roaring like thunder. Compared to them, humanity's vessel sounded weak. But as the engines warmed, the sound grew deeper. The plates of the ship shook and a strange vibration filled the air. The ground crews of other species frowned. Something about the hum was unsettling. It was not like the songs of plasma reactors or crystal drives. It was old, raw, and alive, like the growl of a predator. Still, the laughter continued. Commentators spoke of how soon the humans would return home in shame. Bets were placed on how many hours or minutes the ship would last. The galaxy treated the launch like a circus show. The captain gave a simple order. "Launch!" The ship rose slowly, almost painfully. Sparks flew as the thrusters fought against gravity. The wings rattled, the hull groaned, and from the outside it looked ready to collapse. More laughter thundered across the port, but the ship did not fall. It climbed higher, shaking, trembling, yet never stopping. Like a wounded animal refusing to die, it pushed against the sky. And as it reached the upper atmosphere, the laughter began to soften. A few aliens tilted their heads, curious. Why had it not broken yet? Inside, the crew held their breath. The young officer gripped his chair tightly. "Captain, the strain is too high." The captain did not move. His voice was steady. "The ship will hold." With a roar that echoed across the stars, the vessel tore free of the atmosphere. Flames burned along its hull, painting it bright against the dark, and then in a sudden silence it entered the void of space. The laughter had stopped. For a heartbeat, the galaxy watched in surprise. Humanity's ship, small and ugly, had done what they said it could not. It had launched. The captain looked through the viewport, his eyes calm, his voice low, meant only for his crew. "They laughed today," he said softly. "But tomorrow they will remember." And in that silence, while billions of aliens stared, no one dared to laugh again. The galaxy was buzzing after the launch. For days, alien broadcasts replayed the strange sight of the human ship rising through fire and shaking metal, yet somehow holding together. Some aliens laughed less now, but most still mocked. They said it was luck. They said the humans had only passed the easiest step. "Anyone can lift a rock off the ground," one alien commentator sneered. "But to cross the storms of Orvan, that is the true test, and humans will never survive it." The storm belt of Orvan was feared across the stars. It was a graveyard of broken fleets and lost explorers. The storms there were not simple clouds but violent rivers of gravity, twisting space itself. Ships of the strongest empires avoided it or only crossed with massive fleets. It was a place where stars bent light, where energy ripped through ships like paper. And now the humans were challenged to go through it. No one knew who first suggested it. Some said it was the Kethar nobles who despised humanity's pride. Others whispered it was the Maracai, who wanted to humiliate the young race before the galaxy. Whatever the truth, the challenge spread like fire. Let the humans cross Orvan. If their ship can survive, then perhaps they are worthy. The galaxy agreed. The humans could not back down. If they refused, it would mean shame forever. Their name would be a joke written in history. In the command chamber of the human ship, the crew listened to the announcement in silence. The young officer turned pale. "Orvan," he whispered. "No ship comes back from there." The captain stood, his hands resting on the metal table. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with something sharper than fire. "Then we will be the first." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The storm belt had swallowed mighty dreadnoughts, ships with glowing shields and alien technology that humans could barely understand. What chance did their old gray vessel have? The captain walked slowly to the center of the room. "Do you know why they laugh at us?" he asked quietly. "Because they see steel where they see crystal. They see rust where they see light. They think beauty is strength." His voice grew harder. "But they have never lived as we have lived. On Earth, storms sink ships. On Earth, fire burns forests. On Earth, mountains swallow villages. Our people have always built in the face of destruction. We do not run from storms. We build to survive them." His words spread through the crew like sparks in dry grass. They lifted their heads. They gripped the sides of their chairs with steadier hands. The young officer swallowed and nodded. "Then we will survive, Orvan." The engines of the human ship began to roar once again. This time there was no laughter in the galaxy. Billions watched the broadcast in silence as the small vessel turned toward the dark horizon, where the storm belt churned like a living beast. Alien admirals leaned back in their chairs, confident. "The humans will be crushed," they said. "Their little ship will be torn apart in minutes." The ship entered the edge of Orvan. The void ahead twisted. Stars bent into spirals, light stretched like rivers of glass. Gravity waves rose and fell like giant invisible tides. Energy storms crackled in blue arcs, shredding even the shadows. The young officer clutched the console. "Captain, readings are unstable. We should fall back." The captain's voice was steady. "Forward." The first wave struck. The ship groaned as if the universe itself was trying to crush it. Alarms flashed red. Metal screamed. The crew bit their lips, expecting the hull to split. But it did not. The ship flexed, bent, and then held. The aliens watching leaned forward in surprise. The ship should have been torn apart instantly. Yet somehow the old gray metal adjusted, absorbing the storm like a tree bending in the wind. Another wave struck. Again the ship groaned, again it shivered. But again it held. The young officer stared wide-eyed. "Captain, how is this possible?" The captain's eyes were cold and sharp. "Because this ship was not built to be fast. It was not built to be pretty. It was built to endure." As the vessel pushed deeper into the storm belt, something strange began to happen. The core reactor hidden deep inside the ship started to glow. At first it was faint like embers in a fire, then brighter, pulsing with each wave of energy that struck the hull. It was as if the storm was feeding it. The crew noticed. Their fear turned to awe. "The core, it's growing stronger," whispered the engineer. The captain only nodded. He had known. The ship was not only designed to survive the storms, it was designed to feed on them. Outside, the alien fleets following at a safe distance watched in disbelief. Their ships were battered even at the edge of Orvan, shields trembling under the violent forces. Yet the human vessel, small and ugly, pressed forward like a predator through fire. For the first time, the laughter stopped not out of surprise, but out of fear. The captain leaned forward, eyes fixed on the storm's heart. "They thought this was a test. They thought it was our trial." His voice dropped to a whisper. "But this is only the beginning." The ship plunged deeper, its core burning brighter, its shadow stretching across the storms like a warning. And the galaxy, watching in silence, began to wonder, what had humanity The human ship drifted deeper into the storm belt of Orvan, its gray hull glowing faintly from the strange energy that licked across it. Around the galaxy, every viewing screen was locked onto the broadcast. Billions of eyes followed the tiny vessel as it entered places where no ship dared to go. Alien fleets hung back at the storm's edge, keeping a safe distance. They could not believe what they were seeing. The humans should have been torn apart in the first waves. Instead, their ship seemed to grow stronger with every strike. The laughter that had filled the spaceport was gone. Now there was silence, thick and uneasy. Inside the ship, alarms still flashed red, but the crew had stopped panicking. They felt the storm hammer against them again and again, but the vessel never broke. It bent, it shook, but it always returned to form. It was as if the ship had been waiting for this storm its whole life. The young officer's hands trembled on the console. His voice cracked. "Captain, the readings—" "The storm's pressure is increasing. If we go further, even the strongest fleets could not survive." The captain stood calmly at the front of the bridge, his eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. "That is why we must go further. If we turn back now, the galaxy will say we escaped by chance. If we go deeper, they will know the truth." The ship pressed forward. Each second felt like an hour. Waves of invisible force slammed against the hull. Energy lashes cut through space, bright as lightning, curling around the ship like snakes of fire. The crew held tight, bracing as the vessel twisted and rolled. And then something happened. A Maracai warship, following too close, was caught in a sudden burst of energy. Its glowing sails ripped apart in a flash, scattering like broken wings. The fleet watching gasped as the Maracai ship vanished in flames. Even their proud technology could not survive Orvan's fury. But the human vessel pushed through the same burst, scarred but unbroken. Sparks flew from its hull, smoke filled its corridors, yet it endured. Across the galaxy, alien leaders shifted uncomfortably. "Impossible," they muttered. "No human ship should last this long." The storm grew worse. Gravity waves bent the stars around them. Whole constellations twisted and stretched like mirrors of water. Time itself felt strange. Clocks flickered. Seconds slowed, then raced. The crew struggled to stay steady, their bodies heavy under the crushing force. The engineer's voice was hoarse. "Captain, the reactor, it's not just stable. It's growing." The captain turned. "Explain." The engineer wiped sweat from his face. "The core, it is feeding on the storm. Every strike of energy is not breaking us. It is charging us." His eyes widened. "We are stronger now than when we entered." The crew stared in shock. The young officer whispered, "So this was the plan all along." The captain said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Outside, the ship glowed brighter with each passing wave. The gray hull no longer looked dull. It shimmered with light stolen from the storm, its shadow stretching long against the twisted stars. To the watching fleets, it looked less like a ship and more like a beast waking from slumber. The commentators spoke in hushed tones now. Perhaps humanity has built something new, something dangerous, but not everyone was impressed. Some alien commanders grew furious. They could not allow humans to win such glory. "Send a fleet into the storm," one noble ordered. "Crush them before they reach the other side." A formation of alien warships armed with plasma and crystal weapons broke from the line. They entered the storm cautiously, their shields blazing. At first they held, forcing their way toward the human vessel. On the human bridge, the young officer paled. "Captain, they are coming after us!" The captain's voice was calm. "Then let them come." The alien fleet advanced, weapons charging, but the storm struck harder with each step. One ship lost power and spun away, swallowed by the gravity tides. Another cracked apart under lightning bursts. The survivors pushed on, determined to reach the humans. Finally, they fired. Blazing beams of light shot through the storm, racing toward the human ship. The crew braced for impact, but when the blast struck the hull, something incredible happened. The ship shook violently, the reactor core blazing white-hot, and then it absorbed the energy. Instead of breaking, the vessel glowed brighter. The alien fleet faltered. Their strongest weapons had only fed the humans. The captain's voice cut through the storm, steady and low. "They think this is our trial. But this is their trial. We are not the ones being tested here." The human ship pressed deeper, pulling ahead of the alien fleet. One by one, the enemy ships fell behind, torn apart by the storm they could not endure. Soon only the human vessel remained, moving through the raging heart of Orvan alone. The galaxy watched in awe and fear. The ship that had been mocked as weak was no longer weak. It was something else entirely. On the bridge, the young officer whispered almost to himself, "Captain, what happens when we reach the other side?" The captain's eyes were fixed on the glowing horizon, where the storm seemed to part like a curtain. His answer was quiet but heavy with promise. "Then the galaxy will learn why this ship was truly built." The storm raged on, but the human vessel did not falter, and across the stars a new feeling spread where laughter once lived: fear. The storm belt slowly thinned and the human ship moved deeper toward its center. The core reactor glowed so bright now that its light filled every corridor. The hum of power shook the walls, yet the ship held steady. To the crew, it no longer felt like a fragile vessel. It felt alive, as if the storms had awakened something hidden inside it. The galaxy was stunned. No one laughed anymore. Broadcast channels showed only silent faces of alien commentators who had run out of words. Whole fleets that had mocked the humans now whispered in fear. If this small, ugly ship could survive what their mighty empires could not, then what else was it hiding? On the bridge, the young officer's voice broke the silence. "Captain, I don't understand. How could this ship be built to feed on storms? No human technology should do this." The captain did not answer at once. He stood at the window, his face lit by the glow of the reactor. Finally, he spoke softly, like a teacher telling an old story. "Do you know where this ship was born? Not in the shipyards of the stars. Not in the docks of alien worlds. It was born on Earth in the fires of our storms." The crew listened wide-eyed. Even the broadcast captured his words, sending them across the galaxy. "Our world is cruel," the captain continued. "We are not born in gardens of crystal or oceans of silk like the Veiler. We are not raised in shining cities that float above the clouds like the Maracai. Earth is a place of storms, quakes, and endless seas. On Earth, rivers flood villages, mountains erupt with fire, winds tear apart cities, and yet every time we rebuild, every time we endure." He stepped closer, his voice sharper now. "We learn to bend steel that does not break. We learn to build machines that survive fire, water, and quake. And when we built this ship, we did not design it for speed or for beauty. We designed it for one thing: survival." The young officer's hands trembled on the console. "So the ship's core?" The captain nodded. "It is not alien technology, it is ours. Earth storms taught us something no one else understood. Energy that destroys can also be energy that feeds. What burns forests can light cities. What drowns fields can turn wheels. And what kills ships can also make them stronger." The crew sat in silence, the truth weighing on them. The galaxy had always seen humans as weak, fragile, too young for the stars. But now it became clear. Weakness had been their strength. Struggle had been their teacher. Another violent wave struck the ship stronger than before. The hull rattled, the lights flickered. The young officer thought the vessel would tear apart. But instead, the reactor pulsed brighter, steadier, hungrier. The storm was not their enemy, it was their fuel. The engineer laughed suddenly, almost mad with wonder. "They thought the storm would kill us. They don't see it is making us unstoppable." The captain did not smile. His eyes stayed hard. "Unstoppable, yes. But remember, power is nothing without purpose. This ship is not a toy. It was not built for pride. It was built for the day the galaxy would test us." The crew exchanged looks. A heavy silence filled the bridge. No one dared to ask the question, but the thought was the same. Had the humans built this ship for war? Outside, alien fleets tried once more to enter the storm. Whole groups of warships surged forward, desperate to prove they could match the humans. But the storm crushed them. One after another, they vanished in fire and broken light. The galaxy gasped as proud armadas, worth billions of credits, were torn apart in minutes. And still, the human ship moved forward. Alone. Unbroken. In the alien halls of power, fear spread like shadow. Admirals whispered. Leaders clenched their fists. The humans had not only survived, they had revealed a secret no one else possessed: the ability to turn disaster into strength. On the human bridge, the young officer finally spoke again, his voice unsteady. "Captain, if we survive this, if we reach the other side, the galaxy will fear us. They will see us not as weak, but as a threat. Was that your plan all along?" The captain turned to him, his face unreadable. "No, my plan was simple. To show them who we are, to show them what humanity truly is. If they choose to fear us, that is their choice. But they will never laugh again." The reactor's light filled the chamber. so bright it seemed to burn through the storm itself. The ship pressed on, its shadow stretching long across the twisted stars. The galaxy now knew a secret it wished it did not. Humanity's ship was not just surviving, it was evolving. And in the silence of every alien fleet, one thought remained unspoken but heavy in every heart. If this is what humans can build while mocked and alone, what will they build when they are ready for war? The storm roared louder, but the human ship only grew stronger and the trial was far from over. The storm belt was finally behind them. After hours of chaos, the human ship broke through the last waves of twisted gravity and burning energy. Its hull was scarred, blackened, and cracked in places. Smoke drifted through some corridors and sparks hissed from the ceiling panels, yet the ship still moved, glowing with the strange power it had stolen from the storms. Billions across the galaxy held their breath. For the first time in history, a ship had crossed the Orvan storm belt and lived. Not just any ship, but the smallest and weakest one, the one built by humans. The commentators spoke in hushed voices. It cannot be. They endured what even our strongest dreadnoughts could not. But while the galaxy watched in awe, not everyone felt wonder. In the great war councils of alien empires, anger and fear spread like poison. If the humans returned to their world in victory, their name would rise across the stars. They would no longer be mocked. They would be respected, perhaps even feared. That the older empires could not allow. At the far edge of the storm belt, fleets were waiting. Massive warships with glowing shields, blades of light, and cannons that could crack moons gathered in formation. They filled the void like a steel wall. These were not scouts or nobles. These were armadas called from every empire that wished to crush humanity before it grew too bold. On the human bridge, the young officer's face turned pale as the scanners lit up. Captain, fleets ahead. Dozens of them. They're blocking our path. The crew stiffened in silence. The human ship had survived the storm, but now they faced something worse. An army. The captain stood at the window, his eyes fixed on the glowing wall of ships ahead. So, he said quietly, they finally show their teeth. A voice cracked over the comms, broadcast to every channel in the galaxy. It was the booming tone of a Kether admiral. Humans, you have proven your stubbornness, but now enough, turn back. Surrender your ship, or be destroyed? Alien commentators cheered at the words. Many believed this would be the end. The storm had been a miracle, yes, but miracles did not last forever. Against so many fleets, humanity's gray vessel could not win. Inside, the crew looked to their captain. Their eyes asked the question no one dared to speak aloud. What now? The captain's voice was steady. We do not surrender. The young officer's hands shook. But Captain, their weapons. We can't fight them all. The captain's eyes were hard as steel. This ship was not built to run. It was not built to kneel. It was built for this very moment. The fleets ahead charged weapons, their ships lighting up like stars preparing to burn. The galaxy watched in tense silence. It would be over in seconds. The first barrage came. Dozens of beams, rockets, and energy blasts streaked across the void, slamming into the human vessel. The ship shook violently, alarms screamed, panels burst into sparks. To the watchers, it looked as if the gray hull would finally shatter. But then, the impossible happened again. The reactor roared to life. The ship's core burned white-hot, brighter than ever before. The energy from the attack did not tear the ship apart, it was absorbed. The vessel pulsed with new strength, its glow spreading across the hull like fire wrapping steel. The alien fleets froze in disbelief. Their strongest weapons had done nothing but feed the humans again. Inside, the young officer gasped. Captain, we're stronger. Every strike is making us stronger. The captain's voice was calm, almost cold. Then let them keep firing. More barrages followed. The fleets panicked, pouring every weapon they had into the human vessel. But with every hit, the ship only glowed brighter. Its shadow stretched across the void, terrible and vast. On the bridge, the captain whispered words only his crew could hear. This ship is not a shield. It is a mirror. Whatever they throw at us, we'll break them instead. The reactor's pulse shook the galaxy. The hull shimmered with light stolen from hundreds of enemy cannons. The small vessel, mocked and despised, now looked like a star ready to explode. Across the fleets, alien admirals shouted orders. Fall back! Fall back! But it was too late. They had awoken something they could not control. The crew looked to their captain, eyes wide with fear and awe. Captain, What do we do now? The captain's gaze never wavered. His voice was soft but carried like thunder. Now, we show them why this ship was built. The human vessel shifted its course. Slowly, calmly, it began to move toward the fleets that had gathered to destroy it. And the galaxy, watching in silence, realized the truth with a shiver. The humans were not defending anymore. They were about to attack. The galaxy held its breath as the human ship moved forward. Slowly, like a predator circling its prey, the vessel glowed brighter with each passing second. The fleets that had gathered to crush it now found themselves trembling before it. They had mocked it as weak, but now it looked like a burning star wrapped in steel. The alien admirals shouted commands. "Fire again! Do not let them through!" Beams of plasma, crystal lances, and rockets poured across the void. The human ship shook violently, but it did not break. The reactor roared like a beast. Every strike only made the glow brighter. The ship absorbed the fury of entire armadas and then pulsed with power strong enough to make the stars flicker. Inside, the crew clung to their stations. The young officer's eyes were wide with terror. "Captain, the energy." "It's too much. The reactor can't contain it forever." The captain stood tall at the front of the bridge. His voice was steady, but his jaw was set hard. It was never meant to contain it forever. It was meant to release it. The words chilled the crew. They exchanged fearful glances. Release it? But onto what? The alien fleets tried to retreat. Their massive ships pulled back, engines flaring as they realized too late what was happening. Some commanders shouted to cut fire, but the damage was already done. They had fed the storm too much. The human vessel pulsed once, twice, then a third time. The glow spread across its hull until the entire ship was wrapped in blinding light. It looked less like a machine and more like a newborn star, trembling with unstoppable force. The captain gave a single order: release. The reactor roared and the ship exploded with a wave of pure energy. It was not a blast of missiles nor a strike of lasers. It was a silent flood of raw power, a mirror of everything the fleets had thrown at it. The wave expanded outward, a wall of white fire stretching across the void. Alien ships were caught in the surge. Shields shattered instantly. Hulls cracked like glass. One by one, the warships were torn apart, their engines ripped from their frames, their proud banners burning in seconds. Entire fleets, once symbols of galactic power, fell in silence as the wave consumed them. On alien worlds, billions of citizens watching the broadcast gasped. What they saw was not just a ship fighting for survival. They saw a weapon capable of destroying armies with their own strength. Inside the human vessel, alarms screamed. The crew gritted their teeth as the ship rattled violently. The young officer shouted, "The hull is breaking. We can't hold this level of power much longer." But the captain did not flinch. He gripped the edge of his chair, eyes cold, voice calm. "We do not need to hold it forever. Only long enough to end this." The wave spread wider, racing past the fleets, stretching toward the nearest planet. The world below was one of the proud Marikai colonies, its surface glowing with cities of crystal and towers that touched the clouds. On the bridge, the engineer's face turned pale. "Captain, the wave will reach the planet," the captain's eyes narrowed. "Then let the galaxy learn the cost of mocking humanity." The wave struck. The planet's shields, ancient and strong, lit up like a wall of glass under a hammer. For a heartbeat they held. Then they cracked. Shards of broken light scattered across the void. The wave poured through, striking the surface. The ground split apart. Towers crumbled like sand. Oceans boiled. The crust itself shattered, breaking into glowing pieces that floated into space. What had been a jewel of the Marikai became a burning scar in moments. Across the galaxy, silence followed. No one spoke. No one laughed. Billions simply stared at the broadcast, unable to believe what they had seen. A single human ship mocked as weak had just broken a planet apart. On the bridge, the crew sat frozen in shock. The young officer whispered, his voice shaking. "Captain, we destroyed a world." The captain turned slowly, his expression unreadable. His words were quiet but heavy with iron. "No, they destroyed themselves. They fed us their fire, and this is the price of their arrogance." The human vessel floated in the silence, its hull still glowing faintly, its shadow stretching long across the ruined planet. In the halls of alien power, leaders whispered in fear. They had wanted to humiliate humanity, but instead they had unleashed something far worse. The captain looked out into the void. his face calm, his voice meant only for his crew. The galaxy thought us weak. Now they know the truth. We are not weak. We are the storm. And across the stars, a single thought echoed in every mind. If one human ship could do this, what would happen when Earth built a fleet? The silence after the catastrophe was heavy, almost unreal. Across the galaxy, every broadcast screen was frozen on the image of the shattered planet. Where once had been shining cities of the Maracai, there was now only drifting rock and boiling seas. A jewel world had been broken apart, not by fleets, not by an empire, but by one single ship of humanity. Billions of alien citizens sat in silence. Children who once laughed at humans now clutched their parents in fear. Soldiers of great empires lowered their weapons as if they were toys. Even the admirals, proud and arrogant only hours before, stared at the destruction with pale faces. No one spoke. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. On the human vessel, smoke drifted through the corridors. Panels sparked. The hull was scarred and glowing faintly red. The ship had given everything, yet it still lived. Inside the bridge, the crew sat in silence, the weight of what they had done pressing down on them. The young officer's face was pale. His voice shook. "Captain, we destroyed a planet. We wiped out millions." The captain did not look away from the viewport, where the pieces of the broken world drifted slowly in the void. His face was calm, but his eyes were like iron. "We did not choose this. They forced our hand. They fired first. They fed us their power, and now they see what happens when they mistake survival for weakness." The engineer whispered almost to himself. "They will never forgive us." The captain finally turned, his gaze sweeping across his crew. "Perhaps not. But they will never laugh at us again. They will never mock humanity again. From this day, they will remember." The broadcast continued across the stars. Billions of aliens listened as the captain's words carried into every hall of power. His voice was steady, his tone heavy with warning. "Let the galaxy know this truth," he said.
Humanity does not seek war.
"We do not seek conquest. But if you test us, if you strike us, if you dare to mock the storms that raised us, then you will pay the price. Remember what you saw today? Remember Orvan. Remember this world." The crew sat silently, the weight of his speech burning into their hearts. Outside, the wreckage of alien fleets floated like ashes, and the broken planet glowed like a scar across the stars. In the Maracai council chambers, leaders wept. In the Kethar war halls, admirals sat frozen in silence. Even the proud Valar, who believed no one could match their shining fleets, whispered in fear. A race they had laughed at only days ago had now shown them a power none of their empires possessed. Across the stars, one phrase spread like a shadow: "Do not test Earth." On the bridge, the young officer finally broke the silence again. "Captain, what now? Do we return home? Do we build more of these ships?" His words trembled. "What if the galaxy comes for us?" The captain looked out at the endless void. His eyes were calm, but his voice carried a weight that made every crew member sit straighter. "If they come, they will find us ready. But we will not build fleets for conquest. We will not become tyrants. This ship was made to endure, and today it endured." "That is enough." The young officer swallowed hard. "But the galaxy will fear us." The captain nodded slowly. "Good. Fear is stronger than laughter. Fear will keep them from testing us again." For a long moment, no one spoke. The ship drifted forward, away from the wreckage, away from the broken planet, its hull glowing faintly like embers fading after fire. Then, in the quiet, the captain whispered words only his crew could hear. "This was only the beginning. The galaxy thinks they saw our full strength today. They are wrong. This was only a test run." The words spread through the ship like a shiver. The crew looked at their captain with new eyes, realizing that what they had unleashed was not the end but the start of something greater. Outside, the galaxy watched in silence. The image of the human ship, scarred but alive, moving calmly past the ruins, burned itself into every mind. Leaders wrote it in their records. Soldiers whispered it in their barracks. Merchants repeated it in markets. Even children would speak of it in fear for generations. They had laughed at humanity once. They would never laugh again. The human vessel disappeared into the stars, leaving only silence behind. And in that silence, the galaxy finally understood. Humanity was not weak, not fragile, not small. Humanity was the storm, and the storm had only just begun.